How to do a sermon series, your theme, your title, and your subtitles. Coming up here on the Better Sundays podcast at Reachkeep.com. Welcome to the Better Sundays podcast. Focused, practical, and usable advice for church leaders looking to reach new young families and impact their community. Well, howdy, howdy, howdy. Mike Holmes here in studio, spending some time with you on how to create a sermon series. How to do a topical sermon series that you can go through and teach your people the Word of God, teach it what the Bible has to say, and help them with specific problems that they have. We have broken this up into several bite-sized chunks, so it's kind of a little mini course almost. Last week we covered the whole idea of the why to do a sermon series and how we go through different things. All the things there, please go back and watch that one. That's the number one. The number two one here that we're dealing with has to do with our themes, titles, and kind of knowing the state of your flocks, kind of figuring out where your sheep are at so that you know what to do. And so we're going to talk about that. The next one that we're doing, and this is number 3, and so you can kind of click the link and get to number 3 once it has been posted there, has to do with what we call like unifying the graphics. If you're into graphics and unifying, kind of make everything look like and sound alike, this is the one that you're going to like. This has to do with unifying graphics and unifying music for the entire thing and how to put some things together, where to use all those graphics, and how to make your sermon series really kind of shine out there. That one then will take us to number 4, which has to do with promoting your sermon series and how you get it on Facebook and how you put it to the different places. For example, this one here, this is a picture just of a sermon series we're going to use as a little example called Stuck on Hold. But there's a whole sentence of stuff that we put right here, a paragraph that was posted online, and so people could read that, and we'll show you kind of how we do that every week into our community groups and into just our own church page so that we can help people out. And then the very last one that we're going to do, section number 5, has to do with how you can make your sermon stretch further, make it sticky and longer by using questions and using discussion points, and how that sermon series can go for not just 4 weeks or 6 weeks, 6 Sundays, okay, but it can go for 6, fill in the blanks. It can, the midweek Bible studies and a lot of different things, and you can really take your church and move them somewhere. Remember, we're leaders, okay? We're here to take our people places. We're not just information transfer people. We're not just educators. We're not just here to, give them, a bunch of data. We're here to take them from A to B, and as a pastor, you need to know where your sheep are and where they need to go and what they need at the different stages of their life. So all of this is based on a document that we have that you can download. It's called the Sermon Series Planner, and it is available at reachkeep.com/planner, and I will put that up so that you can see what that looks like. In fact, I'll click on it right here. You go to reachkeep.com/planner, and 23-point sermon series checklist right here. So this checklist that we're going to give you is exactly what we're teaching on. You can go get it, and you can download it, put your information in there, and it'll take you just right to it. So, all right, hey, let's talk a little bit about kind of the very beginning points here. And these are found at the top. Has to do with your theme and your title and your kind of your subtitles. I want to spend some time mainly talking about that right now. I usually choose and know the date where I'm going to have my sermon series, and I kind of know that because we have different slots and different things we do during the summer and different things in the fall, and relational series fit in better here, and doctrinal series kind of fit in better there. And if you're doing a book series and kind of preaching through, and by the way, you can do a sermon series on a book and just really make it very tractional in several ways. We did one recently on how to have victory. I can't remember exactly the title of it, but it's something like Victory in Life. But we did the whole book of Joshua, preached all the way through, verse by verse, all the way through Joshua there. And we actually, to be honest, there we didn't hit every single verse, but we hit the highlights of Joshua, I think in about a 6 or an 8 week series there, and went through that. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, but the first thing is to make sure you get your date and you have your slots, and you know that if you got like 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and kind of the 4 to 8 weeks range is good. If you have something that has a lot of data to it and a lot of complexity and a lot of different things, you could spend we did a couple series, like we did one on creation versus evolution. I think we did 8 weeks because there's so many areas. We did something on the the prophecies in the Bible that had come true, and some of the proofs. What do you call that? Apologetic stuff. And that one was like 8 weeks, a little bit longer. This one here that we're going to show you as a demonstration is just a simple kind of a relational series, a kind of a personal thing. It's called Stuck on Hold, and it's what we need to learn when God seems to have put us in a holding pattern. And so the title and the theme is really what is important. And I wanted to kind of go through that, so we kind of give you this one as an example. We've got another one we'll give you as an example. Knowing where your people are is really what's going to determine what your sermon series is on. That's the most important thing to start out, to know that if your people need more faith, if they need to hear about giving or endurance, or you're burdened for them to be godly parents, you're burdened for them to be more of a witness. I mean, there's many, many different things. And as a pastor, you need to be prayerfully digging into and asking God what those things would be. Sometimes those things are handled in series, because it is, if you're going to teach on like endurance and handling trials, you can do that in one sermon, but it really, there's several aspects of some of that. The one that I wanted to show you, we taught a little while back on how to handle a hurt, and many of you have seen this. It's in our background here, one of the posters we have. But this was a 5-week series. And it was all about what to do when you've been through some difficult situations. And almost everybody relates to that, so it fits really well. So we had title, How to Handle a Hurt, and then we had what we call sort of the titles of each sermon were thought out ahead of time, and all of these were lessons from the life of Jesus that had to do, with different things that he did, and it was just really some good stuff. So, hurt by a circumstance, hurting by a bad decision, hurting by a system, hurting for someone else, and hurting by a friend. And the subtitles in there is really what makes it interesting, and I want to make sure that you take time to really think about your titles and subtitles, okay, because they really make it where people can be a relatable thing. And again, you and I, we're going to be at church on Sunday no matter what. That's kind of the way it works. But if people are inviting their friends, and if you're bringing in new people, or if you're advertising and putting things like this, and we take these graphics and put them out on Facebook, you want to have something out there that piques their interest. So, for example, if you just had like the title and it said John 15, okay? Now, you and I know what John 15 is all about. It's going to be awesome, okay? Vine, branches, good stuff, okay? But you might want something a little bit more than that. Okay, so that is sort of where we go. This particular one on Stuck on Hold was teaching through, we talked about the children of Israel and all the things that they went through. And so here are the titles, and they kind of resonate a little bit. So the first one was called Bad Event, ? And lots of times using a question mark in there, kind of like, yes, that was me, I had a bad event. Okay, and it says How to Bloom in the Desert. So it creates a contrast right away that there's been a bad thing, but you can bloom, bad to bloom. I mean, my life needs to bloom, okay? I'm in the middle of bad, all right? So people can kind of resonate with that. So that is the first one was Bad Event, How to Bloom in the Desert. So this is the subtitle concept that we want you to use. The second one is The Clock Works, and this was the idea of waiting and maturing. And we dealt with the children of Israel while they were waiting and growing in the desert, and some things along that line. The ouch factor. And it's kind of there's fear factor and a lot of different things that deal with the word factor. So ouch factor kind of stuck out when we created this one. And it says being pruned for growth. Okay, and this was the whole idea of Moses and some things that he had done was wrong, and he was pruned. And we, of course, went into John 15 and some of this, and how pruning is very good for you. Okay, and then the last one is called divine deliverance. And everybody relates to these words like deliverance or relief or, handle a hurt. They relate to that. And it says divine deliverance, how patience sets us free. And almost everybody knows what that means, But for them to hear a sermon on that, it's like, hey, I need this. My children need this. My daughter-in-law needs this. My son needs this. You know, you think about people that need that, and you tend to want to bring people along. Each of these titles carries with it kind of the idea of bringing someone to come hear this, because it's going to come here. They're going to come and hear and mature. And your church people, who are your regular attenders, you know, we often have like big days in this day and bring your cousin to church and, you know, all that. But this is where people just start to like, man, my church has solutions. And at Reachkeep here, we say every Sunday solve a problem. And we want you to solve problems. And these titles and the subtitles can be the things that do that. You're tying the scriptures in there. I would not have a title that just said, you know, Exodus 3, you know, or something along that line. We might know where you're going with that sermon, but most people wouldn't. And we are going to then show you in the next couple ones here how to promote this so that you can get this out, because our community is filled with people who are stuck on hold. I mean, you know, in fact, we have on this one stuck on hold, and you can see it up there at the top. I'll highlight that. What do we need to learn when God seems to have put us in a holding pattern? And this is the idea of like having a theme and sort of the theme verse that kind of explains that, hey, we're going to learn things when we're in this holding pattern. And of course, the graphics will talk a little bit about that and kind of how we handled some of that. But I want to kind of get you kind of thinking about that whole thing. First of all, just, you know, your date and your slots that you have, and then your theme and your scriptures and how that all ties together. And this is probably one of the bigger things to do, is to develop this. Now, you're going to have scriptures in your mind if you're doing something on the Apostle Paul and how he developed, or you're doing something on parenting and some of that. You need to really pray and get alone and come up with good theme ideas like this to kind of help you through. And this takes more time than about anything. That's why we want you to be working on your sermon series way ahead of time. This is not something you pull off on a Saturday night, okay? It's not something you just do. It's where you have that conscientious forethought. And when these things show up and people see this in a graphic, and they see it on Facebook, and they see it on the wall, and they see it in a promotion, they see it in a bulletin, they see it on a slide, they see it on the wall, they see it a lot of different things, they know that you have been thinking about this, and people appreciate the conscientious forethought, and they're going to be thinking more about coming to church and growing in Christ and maturing and putting off the flesh and putting off the old things and walking in the newness of Christ, because you have been training them in the way they should go. So this is just number one. Next week, we're going to be kind of covering this whole idea of the unifying graphics and how we do that. Show you how to make the graphics. We'll show you how to kind of create some unifying music that kind of takes you through the whole thing, and the things that kind of glue everything together. And then, of course, we're going to talk about promotion and sort of the stickiness and the questions and group questions and things like that over the next few weeks. So make sure you take those. If you did not get that sheet, you can go to reachkeep.com/planner, and that will get you right where you need to go. And so this is Mike here at reachkeep.com at the Better Sundays Podcast. We're so glad you're with us, and we will see you next week here on the Better Sundays Podcast. Didn't I say that? Yep, at reachkeep.com.